all votes will be taken by roll call. So for the record, we should take attendance. I'm going to do it in the order in which you appear on my screen. Mike Barclay.
Here.
Tina Stino.
Present.
Fran Collins.
Present.
Mary McGoldrick.
Present.
Nick Wheeler.
Present.
Patrick Kennedy.
Here.
Adam Damon.
Present.
Mark Maggi.
Present.
And that is all of the members who are here. So the first item on the agenda is a budget presentation for DPW and facilities. I understand that Brian Joyce is joining us for that this evening. And we have Don also to chime in as necessary. And I thought perhaps we could hand it over to Brian.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to your prospective rooms and turning this on. So I'm just going to share screen here. I think I have the ability. So are we all seeing cover sheet of the presentation, slide deck?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll get right into it. So we're going to be talking about DPW facility budgets tonight. It's numbers 422 through 426. 422 being highway, tree and park, 423 snow and ice, 24s street lights, 425 is the RTF, and facilities is 426 with, if you look at the budget numbers, the suffix of each of those budget numbers has a town building associated with it, and that's number 11 through 63, the buildings, the facilities that you see here. The overall budget message is it's a level service budget with minor increases due to contractual obligations, salaries, and some minor increases, for tree maintenance and such for increased weather events. So starting off, we'll do 422 DPW. So we're proposing a $1.627 million budget. It's a 3.8% increase, or $59,855. Prior accomplishments include design and oversight for the rehab of the Border Street Bridge substructure. That's ongoing. We have probably about 60% of the bridge, including abutments, and about 40% of the archway done. The remaining is anticipated to be done in spring. We did design and bid award for the Cohasset Harbor boat ramp at Parker Ave. We've completed this year's NIPD stormwater permit requirements, which include mapping, and we began monitoring and stormwater outfalls, monitoring and some sampling of stormwater outfalls, but due to the weather, we have to continue that through next summer. Clean catch basins per the NIPD's requirements, and assisted emergency management with COVID safety precautions all around town as necessary, outdoor dining, Jersey barriers, things of that nature. Goals for the upcoming year, the continued road paving program. We have Jerusalem, a section of Jerusalem Road, Beach Street, Sawyer Street on the docket on the short list. Continued substructure work on Border Street Bridge. We anticipate completing the harbor boat ramp in the fall. It was slated for this spring, but due to some delays with actual contractors having COVID and materials, we weren't going to make the the opening of the season, so we decided to delay it until the fall after the summer boating season. Let's see, we're going to complete the wet weather sampling monitoring of the NIPD's permit. Design and grant funding for Elm Street Corridor project and repaving, and hopefully come to a design on that project. We're going to try to get more snow and ice plow drivers on the docket. We're trying out some unique things with some bonuses if you make all the storms. It seems to be effective this year, and we're still shy a couple of contractors if you know anybody. And we're going to resheathe the RTF buildings that haven't been sheathed in a couple of decades. Also do perpetual care upgrades for the cemeteries with perpetual care funds. Our capital requests, the main three are a front end loader for $200,000, Deer Hill backhoe, $145,000, and a Mack truck dump. The front end loader is a replacement of a 1998 Samsung loader unit that it was at its end of life, and it had just recently failed. So we're actually renting a unit right now to get us through the winter season. The backhoe is replacing a 99 New Holland backhoe that's at the RTF. That unit is used to compact the trash. Well, it's used for moving materials and also for compacting trash and materials inside the containers. So we reduce our hauling by getting more material in there. The Mack truck dump is replacing a 1986 International L8000 truck. And I think that speaks to the maintenance that Carl and the crews down there do, and that there's still a 1985-86 unit on the road doing plowing. Any questions on 422, or do you want to? How would you like to do you go through each one and take questions on each budget, or would you like to get through the whole thing and then take questions?
I think probably questions while they're fresh. I see Fran's hand.
Sure.
So Brian, what's $240,000 buying us?
So that's a 10-wheel dump Mack truck. So it's equivalent to an F 750. So if you look at this picture here in the background, it's the largest of the vehicles in the fleet that are used for plowing main roads, salt sanding, hauling, and getting asphalt, doing paving, things of that nature. Also, the catch basin cleaner is on this size machine. Why do we need a 10-wheel truck? Like, what's wrong with a 6-wheel truck, heavy-duty 6-wheel truck with a big axle? It's just it's bigger. It gets North Main Street, South Main Street in a single pass. Some of the other the smaller trucks don't get, you need to make 2 passes to get through it. Also, it's, just for hauling purposes, a bigger truck allows us to haul more material with fewer trips. Yeah. It's a replacement in kind of the existing L8000. I just think that seems like a little bit of overkill to have a truck that big when a 6-wheel truck, a good heavy duty 6-wheel truck, could do the job just as well. But we still have 2 trucks going up and down. Even when we had 10-wheelers hired in to do South Main Street, we still had 2 trucks, one behind the other. So to me, I think we'd be better off with a 6-wheel truck. That's save us a few $1,000s. But anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, if either you or Patrick, I should have mentioned, you guys being the liaisons to the DPW, if you want to follow that question with, alternatives, you should feel free to do so.
Right.
The other question I have is just, my impression is that these capital requests will also be taken up with the capital budget part of the warrant? Yes?
That's correct. Yeah. So we presented these to the Capital Budget Committee, and they're in consideration with them.
Okay. We have a joint meeting with capital budget at some point. Just so, and we should probably, as a committee, I should indicate this at the outset. I was trying to remember how we had done this in past years. And I think we sort of awkwardly took in each of these department reports and then voted on them. But when you think about it, the only thing we vote to do is to recommend or not recommend the budget. So I think we can make recommendations and have conversations with the individual departments, but I don't think we necessarily need to take a vote to approve the presentation. And what we may want to do is, after receiving the presentations, is on our next agenda, open a little bit of time for discussion after we have some time to absorb it. And if we have questions or recommendations to make back, we can do so. That's what I'm thinking. If people have better ideas, I'm all ears. We can talk about that later. But that's kind of where we're headed with this. So does anybody else have any questions? I see Patrick's hand and I see Adam after that.
Two quick questions, Brian. One is, in 2022, year to date, where did we stand on snow removal? We've had quite a few storms. Are we over budget already? Where do we stand on that line item for this fiscal year? And then the 3.8% recommended increase in budget for this department in 23. I note that that's above the 2.5%, Prop 2.5 limit. Is that additional headcount? Is it contractual raises? What pushes it up above the 2.5?
Sure. So your first question, I'm sorry, was the first question was about
storm and ice and snow removal in this fiscal year to date?
Okay. So
approximately.
Yeah, we are not over the 127. I think it's the next slide where we're not over the 127,000 year to date. We're approximately 80%, okay. 80 to 90% of that. The last couple of storms were a big hit. We weren't anticipating last Friday to do as much plowing as we had to. It just the accumulation wasn't what was originally forecast, but at any rate, so I think
Sunday.
I'm sorry, Sunday. Yeah. You're right, Sunday into Monday. So it's anyway, we're on budget. We're hopefully won't get into a 2015 situation where it snowed for several weeks until March. But
hey, Brian.
Yes.
So when we get on to the next report, I ran all the year-to-dates as of February 8th. Bunch of POs were just approved. We're about $60,000 over budget in snow and ice as of right now.
That's from the last.
That's
storm.
from the last storm. We just got POs in from Ashley for a bunch of stuff. Salt, sand.
Not surprised.
Yeah, so that's about where we're at right now, Patrick. And
thank you.
Everybody else. Yep.
And what goes into the 3.8 increase? The big items. Is there more bodies? Is it contractual raises that are? What is it?
There are no more bodies. We have some contractual. We have salaries and contractual raises. There's tree maintenance. We're increasing by 10,000. Street signs and. Our CMAS hauling contract rate has gone up, and also a big issue at the RTF has been our mulch handling. So you may have noticed that our mulch, we weren't able to accept for a few weeks compost, and so we've increased that budget to do some more handling of that material and compost it more effectively.
Thank you.
I think, Adam, I saw your hand. It might be just because the boxes on my screen are very small, and if you can use the little raise hand function, it's more likely that I'll see you quicker. But if you can't find it, or you don't like a little yellow hand over your head, just wave and I'll get you. But Adam, you were up.
Yeah, so I guess the question that I have is in regards to the road paving, and you had mentioned a handful of streets that are on the docket that you're planning on paving. It sounds like there's a program that you have in place, and I don't necessarily know whether or not it's tied to some sort of master plan or in coordination with National Grid or whomever's doing all the work in the streets to tear up the gas pipes and obviously leaving them in sort of like a bumpy manner. So I guess in terms of the timing of all of them, how do you prioritize and when do you plan on doing, like, I don't think you mentioned Sawyer, and I know a lot of people have been talking about the way Sawyer currently looks. So just wondering about the timing, the planning, and how do you prioritize individual streets?
Sure. So we're it's a constant process. So we have a 20-year road plan where we work to get all of our streets paved on a 20-year cycle. So we have 37 miles of public road in town and about 13 miles of private road. So 37 miles, we should be doing roughly, you know, 1.5 miles to 2 miles per year of road paving to keep everything on a 20-year cycle. So that's our, you know, 30,000 foot level goal. And we try to fund that. Now, you know, 1.5 miles to 2 miles of road is roughly, you know, every road's a little bit different on width and structures and things like that, but it's roughly about $750,000 per year. So what we try to do in the budgeting through capital and through town meeting is to budget that, and then the roads go up and down based on the priority. You know, Elm Street was a high priority. It was supposed to be paved a couple of years ago. We've gone back and forth, and there's been a lot of iterations of the design out there. The water main was done. As far as utilities go, when we have a street that's on the short list, I'll include, you know, we have Sawyer Street is on the list for this year. I probably, maybe I didn't mention it, but it's Beach Street, Jerusalem, and Sawyer Street. Sawyer Street's getting a new sidewalk from Fair Oaks Lane down to Route 3A. That prep work is likely to happen in the spring. And then there's also some utility work near the schools and Cook Estates that need to be done prior to us paving. So the paving of that street is likely to be in the fall. What we try to do, you know, 2 to 3 years before we know we need to pave a road is to notify utilities, water, sewer, and gas to come in and do their utilities. So like Sawyer Street is right now, you generally have a terrible road for a season or two prior to getting a new paving. We don't like to get a trench down the road and pave it immediately. We like to have it settle over the winter. So you have as much settlement as possible. Then we come in and do a mill and overlay, and you reduce the amount of settlement in the new pavement.
Yeah.
So generally that's what we have. We have a 20-year road plan, and roads go up and down based on condition, based on utility projects. South Main Street, there's talk of sewering South Main Street. A lot of these decisions need to be made by other, you know, committees and boards and the town in general. So we try to hit the utilities first and then get it paved. And then after we pave it, we have a 10-year protection plan, basically, where we have a 5-year strict moratorium, no digging at all. And then from year 6 through 10, it's kind of a fee, a pre-opening penalty. Well, not a penalty, but a pre-opening fee if you need to go in to do utility work. That doesn't include, obviously, emergency gas leaks and things like that. And then from years 10 to 20, you're kind of planning when you're going to pave that road again.
How long do we wait on it?
Can we proceed with hands just to make sure we're not talking on top of each other? Go ahead, Mark. Or Adam, were you done? Muted.
Just really quick. So the one thing that I was going to say about Sawyer is that I think I saw as part of one of the master plans a potential for sidewalks. So I think, what comes first? Does the road get paved and then you build sidewalks, or do those things happen concurrently?
So Sawyer Street has sidewalks up to Fair Oaks, and there is a new sidewalk going in prior to paving from Fair Oaks down to Route 3A. So that will include the entirety of the street. And then when we pave the street, we'll also pave the sidewalks.
Okay, so it happens at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mark, go ahead.
Thanks. Sorry about not raising the hand. How long do we wait on a decision about a potential sewering of South Main before the topic of paving it is raised? Because it's been torn up a few times in recent years and is in pretty rough shape.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So it's been discussed and discussed with funding. Obviously, you have to fund at a town meeting a project of that size. You're probably looking at $7 million, which includes all of the sewering and all of the I'll call them tributary streets off of it and those neighborhoods. If that decision isn't made in the short order, we're going to have to go in and do a grind and inlay of the existing trench. You have a gas trench that goes up the entire length from basically the center of town to the Situate line. And that would give us at least a few more years of, drivability until the ultimate decision is made on sewer. There's also a short stretch of water main that needs to be done from the center of town to basically Summer Street on that.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Anybody else? I have a question. I'm listening. Okay, looks like everybody else has asked. You had mentioned that part of the budget involves tree work, and I assume some of that is outside contractors. Because of other groups I'm a member of, spend an inordinate amount of time in Wheelwright Park and Ingram Park. And the storms over the last couple of years have created some genuinely hazardous conditions in there. What Scouts refer to as widowmakers, and not just Scouts, campers. And I know that there are some citizens who are, talented with tree maintenance and getting things off the trails and down. But what role does the town play in dealing with conditions in those properties that I can only imagine are very expensive to deal with an outside contractor bringing in the appropriate equipment to some of those sites? But I just have no sense of what the town, whether the town is walking, say, the main trail in Wheelwright and looking up, because there are some things that are, genuinely dangerous.
So generally, just this year alone, we're probably 150% spent, and Dawn can probably give the exact figures on the tree maintenance budget. And primary is our roads, so we focus on roads and and for public safety and passage. Usually, the stuff in the parks is reports of hazardous trees that have fallen down into the pathway. We'll go in and we'll, if necessary, we'll cut them out of the way. And the Boy Scouts and Phil Lair, for instance, has done a lot of work personally in going in and clearing out trails. But it is not a standard practice to walk the trails and kind of look overhead for dead wood and things like that. We generally, we focus on hazardous tree removal first on main roads, sidewalks. If there is a hazard reported in and around public land, we'll go in and look at it and address it. But it's not an inspection practice that we follow.
Thanks. I didn't mean to suggest that DPW wasn't doing its job. I don't think it's practicable to deal with everything that's in there. But Phil and Vince Thornton also are the Michelangelo of the chainsaw. Those guys do a lot of work, and they drag the Scouts in to clear the stuff out. So that's good to know. So yeah. I saw Mark and then Don.
Yep, thanks. Is proximity to power lines something that is considered at all? I mean, it's been a year of lost power in Cohasset.
It is, yeah.
Preemptive maintenance seems like it could prevent some of that potentially.
Yeah, so we work with National Grid. We're not allowed to go within a 10-foot radius of power lines. So what we do is, so we work with National Grid. We have another meeting with them tomorrow on tree maintenance. They've done a lot of tree maintenance in the past 3 years, and in the past year, in fact, the main feeders that go, we have a main feed that comes in King Street, goes up towards Stop and Shop, and then comes down Sawyer Street, and also goes the other way towards, Lower King and Forest Ave. They have removed, I want to say, I think it was about 120 trees, and also trimmed a lot of dead wood off of those other trees. I don't know if they've completely finished that project, but that has, increased reliability. Our focus on town trees is mainly if something is a hazard with falling, but if it's in or near power lines, we ask National Grid to do it, and it's it saves us on budget, and it also helps out with power.
Just to add to that, I know also that Comcast and Verizon's their cable licenses have specific tree trimming responsibilities in them. I've never looked at the electric companies one, but I'm sure that they have the same thing, whether they do it or not.
Yeah.
Don, you want to hand up?
Glad to hear it's a consideration.
I'm sorry, were you not?
No, I'm just saying I'm glad to hear it's a consideration. So thanks, and not that I'm plugging Verizon, but in all the storms, even though I've lost power for 3 or 4 days at a time, I've managed to keep internet. So cheers to Verizon for that.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, Verizon and Comcast generally don't do tree trimming. I mean, if you look at the pole set, you have your power, and then you have your communications underneath it. So generally, it may be the power that gets hit, and it might be saving your Verizon just by virtue of placement on the pole set.
Makes sense. I saw Don had a hand up. There he is.
Yeah, I was just sorry if I missed that, Brian. Were you asking for where we were with the tree maintenance budget?
Yeah, yes, I was just curious.
We budget 40 grand, and we're year to date about 58,000, so a little less than 20,000 over budget.
Right.
All right. Anything further? You want to move on to the next slide?
Sure. Am I still in share mode?
There's nothing on my screen from you right now, so I would say no.
Let's try that again.
There we go.
All right. So again, we're snow and ice. Snow and ice is one of the budget lines that by law we can overspend, and we do annually overspend. In my time here, we've only underspent once, and that was during the year we had no snow. I think it was 2 years ago. So as Don said, we are overspent, and every year we just carry the same value. And I don't know, Don, do you want to comment on how it's repaid?
How it's repaid?
Yeah, just on the.
So yeah, snow and ice is one of the only budget that you can legally overspend because of the variability year to year, depending on snowstorms and events. So, once you start increasing your budget, you actually can't reduce it. So, we were at 125 for quite a while. We moved it up $2 grand to account for a contractual obligation, but we've held it here because it's a reasonable budget amount. We haven't historically gone over too significantly that we couldn't handle it within the fiscal year. So basically 2 things happen when you go over budget in this department. I've been here almost 5 years, and in any year it's gone over, we've been able to handle it with year-end transfers. But if that isn't the case for any reason, which here we shouldn't have that problem, basically it's just a matter of you have to raise it in the next year on the recap. So usually what would happen is in next year's budget cycle, you'd have to raise it usually with free cash or another funding source. But since my tenure here, we have not had to do that.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.
So, and just to note, we did get the capital appropriation to replace the salt shed. Another COVID delay on the materials. They weren't able to promise completion by the end of November of this year. They anticipated going into Christmas time. So we held them off until April 1st. That way we'll have the full construction season to get it done. So that the salt shed is in fabrication. Everything is ordered. We're ready to tear down the shed, the old one, once winter passes safely. So I'm going to move on to the next slide unless there's questions on this.
I don't see any.
Okay. Next slide is 424 streetlights. Again, this is there's no change in this budget. We purchased 511 streetlights a few years back to get a better rate tariff on electricity. We also converted all those old sodium lights to LEDs, and we have a contractor, Daigle Electric is the current contractor, maintaining our lights. So when they go out, they come in and replace them as needed. We're also one change in operations that we're going to stockpile a few of these lights at DPW because material lead times have gotten longer. Any questions on streetlights?
I don't see any.
The RTF, this is a 0.8% budget increase. Prior year accomplishments, again, we're getting through COVID, hopefully at the end of this. Obtained and installed a paper compactor in the cardboard building. Continued education on recycling for the public. Installed new operating floor in the cardboard facility. There are many OSHA upgrades, and there are more that need to be done with railings and such up there. The compost I had mentioned before. We really need to reduce the amount of the pile that's up there. So that we can more effectively compost. It needs to be turned at certain intervals, and the volume of material up there just doesn't allow for that. So with better composting, we hope that we'll have more product that people will take away. Right now, we take in a lot more than folks take out. We also hired 2 new RTF staff filling vacancies, but we still have another staff to hire. Again, one of the goals is increasing our compost operation. We are looking at some potential other land we'll have to go through Concom. We've had some preliminary discussions on the other side of the landfill. We're replacing the loader, which is the unit that handles turning over the large piles up there, and also any other heavy equipment or heavy materials. We're going to hire a vacant position, hopefully. And with that vacant position, we'll be able to more frequently man the guard booth up there. And again, there's a lot of OSHA and outreach that needs to be done up there. Anticipated capital requests, the loader, the resiting, so the baler, this is, that's not this year. So it's really just the loader and the backhoe for this year. The backhoe seems to be off the page here. We're going to reside the buildings up there with using in-house crews. Any RTF questions?
I see a hand from Mark.
Yeah, just real quick. I know one of the issues has been, people depositing more than they're taking from the compost pile. Has there been any exploration of, other people that might want that compost? I mean, it's good soil. We just don't have enough people with backyard vegetable gardens that want it all. Are there community garden programs or urban garden programs that might want this that could help us reduce the pile?
We're open to suggestions. We've contacted several contractors. Anyone, the ones who would take it for a lower value, we still need to haul it, and it's there's one in Western Mass, and there's one I think up around Salem or that area. So it does cost to get rid of it. So we're trying to at least find a way to make it neutral, or maybe even have someone take it and pay us for it.
We have some of the finest weed seeds in the South Shore in that compost pile.
Yeah. So the issue, and again, I'm not a green thumb, but it's you do need to you need to have rows of piles, and those piles need to be turned at a frequency in order to make it compost. To kill all the weeds and seeds and make it a finished product. And if you go up there now, all you're seeing is a volcano of compost that doesn't really get turned over, and then it gets screened, and you have a black material that may have some seeds in it. So I don't know if anybody has used it, but it's not the highest quality. And I think if we optimize the operation where we can get a good quality compost, it'd be more value to get rid of it, and more value to, I think, folks in town to take it.
You're right, Brian. It is good stuff, and I've used it a lot. But it hasn't been handled properly. It needs to get enough heat in there, enough turnover to kill all the seeds. But it is good stuff. Anybody that takes it, it does certainly it certainly helps anybody's gardens.
Yeah, and I just think we want to encourage people to continue getting rid of that waste in a responsible way and not dumping it elsewhere. So having to close that thing for a period of time is something I think we'd like to try and avoid if at all possible.
I agree. Mike, I see your electronic hand.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, just real quickly, where do the revenues for the $2 plastic blue bags go?
So I'll defer to Don on that one, but they go to, well, go ahead, Don.
Part of this, one of our local receipts within the general fund.
Okay. Do we know how many of those we sell a year?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. No. Didn't expect the answer, but I just think at $2 a pop, that's a lot of revenues.
Yeah, we do get a report. So we have a vendor. The vendor who makes the bags gives us a report on sales that we could pass along.
Okay, and whether they're bought at Stop and Shop or at the actual transfer facility, we get the full amount either way, right?
Yeah, we get the full amount, and actually, so it's just I think it's 4 or 5 sites, and we're just basically a site like Stop and Shop. We have a report on how much we sell, and we're just another vendor on the report list. But all of that revenue comes back to the town, less our contractual obligation with the manufacturer.
Mike, we've recorded $116,000 of trash bag revenue.
Okay, thank you.
And Waste Zero is the name of the company that we deal with, who makes the bags for us and several other municipal, pay-as-you-throw communities.
Anything else? Okay.
Moving on into the last bigger budget is 426 facilities. We're proposing a $1.12 million budget. It's a 1.3% increase, basically a level service increase. Prior year accomplishments, we have a new facilities director, and that transition went smoothly from Mark Kelly to Nick Berardi. We had a middle school facade replacement. there was an emergency where all of the anchorage in front of the middle school, it was discovered by one of our facilities techs who was up looking at one of the windows. It wasn't connected to the building and it was in danger of falling. So that was a big fix. We converted a mobile generator from the fixed unit that was at CEA. Lighting upgrades in all the common areas of the schools. There's a new wood shop dust collector system that's at the high school. There was a grant awarded to us from Maya for OSHA, a commercial labeler, and all of the labeling in the mechanical rooms, as far as all the electrical panels, units, flow direction, fluid, all of that has been done, and it's a lot easier to go in and troubleshoot, with everything labeled, and also be safe. Multiple painting projects, particularly at the schools. We had new boilers installed at the public library, which is also the rec facility. That was done with Green Communities grant funding. And there's a new teen center. The facilities did all the work in-house with upgrading that facility to make it a nice place for the kids to hang out. Sprinkler upgrades at the Osgood School, all the heads, and the continued, support for COVID through all the town facilities is done by facilities as far as hand sanitizers and any other shielding or anything COVID related. Goals for upcoming year include, continued development of the facilities work order system, Green Communities funding of hopefully lighting, and then our second phase of the high school, middle school HVAC building automation controls, and then multiple ongoing facility maintenance projects. So if there's, I'll entertain any questions. I'm sure folks have questions on facilities.
I saw Mike first, then Adam.
Yeah, hey, Brian. So I'm looking at a couple of these items that are, in my mind, they would be capital items for the schools. Like, are those being paid for out of the school capital budget, or is that coming out of facilities, or is it fungible? How's that working? Which
items are you referring to?
Let's see. So the wood shop dust collector, the sprinkler upgrades. I mean, I'm not saying they're not needed. I'm just curious, kind of, and then the is it the lighting or the HVAC controls? There's just a couple of them sprinkled in there, and I wasn't sure if the facilities department, if your department is on the hook for those, or if you're just installing them.
So anything lighting related or HVAC upgrades, the new boilers, anything that is, that is an efficiency increase. It has been funded through Green Communities grant. I think it was presented to the Capital Budget Committee just kind of as a consideration, but it's not funded through town funding but it's funded through where Green Communities. We've been a green community for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years now. We're on, 5 or 6 iteration of applying for those funds. It's a competitive grant, and we have consultants come in. Their cost is included in the grant fund, and they submit on our behalf. And if we're awarded, we move forward with these efficiency projects. It could be VFDs for rooftop units. I have a picture down on the bottom, or building automation controls, occupancy sensors, lighting, anything that's kind of an energy efficiency upgrade. Those are funded usually through that. The wood shop dust collector, that was a capital budget funded project. The facade replacement, I believe you guys funded that through an emergency transfer, and Dawn could probably correct me on that one if I'm wrong.
We did.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think the sprinkler upgrades were a safety. That was a recall on a recall from the manufacturer on the sprinkler heads. So I believe that was through our regular operating plumbing budget. Well, and through the manufacturer.
Okay, so would it be fair to say most of these are either grants or like the facade was an emergency? I get that, or or hopefully in the case of the sprinklers where they were defective, we got something back from the manufacturer.
Yes, I mean it's fair to anything over 10 grand goes to capital. We don't really we don't do any projects generally that are over 10 grand that are not capitally funded unless it's an emergency and you guys are funding it. If you look at our budget lines for plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, they're smaller in nature and they're maintenance. They're made for for maintenance and PM. And there's a contingency line, a little bit of contingency to do for minor repairs that don't meet the threshold for capital.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Sure.
And Adam, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, so one of the items that we had talked about with the Alternative Energy Committee was in regards to the roofs of the schools. And when we had run the solar procurement back in, whenever it was, 2020, one of the hesitations was the fact that we knew that the school roofs needed to be replaced. And when you look at the anticipated capital requests within the next 3 years, it doesn't seem like the school roofs are being anticipated. And I know that there was a 50% grant that was available, I think in 2025. So I was just wondering why it wasn't being anticipated and what the potential plans are, especially if you are putting some of those HVAC units on the roofs themselves.
Yeah, so you're right. It was on the short list, and the funding mechanism because of the size of the high school, middle school roof, for instance, it's a huge price tag, and the funding mechanism was through the schools. I don't know if Dara, but it's basically SBA. I think it is the School Building Facility Fund. I'll just call it that, but it's a state funding program for school buildings, large capital items, windows, boilers, roofs, things like that. But they just recently changed the rules from, I think it was items that are 20 years old to items that are 25 years old. So it pushed our funding out for those items an additional 5 years beyond what we originally anticipated in applying for. Don, do you have any other information on that one? Or were you involved?
No, I don't have anything further on that.
Yeah. So it's that's the reason that it moved out on the capital plan.
Yeah.
Your last question was about.
Because the reason was when we were running the procurement, there was hesitation putting the solar panels on because obviously put them on 1 year and then 3 years later when the roofs get replaced, you have to take it off. So I don't know anything about HVAC. It seems like a majority of them are just going in the rooms themselves, but the picture looked like a big unit. So it does say rooftop. So is that thing going on top of the roof, and are you going to have to deal with a similar issue of taking that thing off after you put it on?
Yeah, so the rooftop units are basically penetrations in the roof. So the replacements of rooftop units, I just put this up here as kind of a major piece of equipment that facilities deal with on a daily basis, really. But this is similar to what it looks like on top of the gymnasium at the high school roof. And, the penetrations are already underneath it. So the roofing material, the membrane roof goes around it. It's not really underneath it, as you have ductwork penetration in here, and then you have return ductwork on the other side, and you may have some plumbing and condensate line and electrical, and all those penetrations are underneath the footprint of the unit. So it's
gotcha. So
it's a little different.
It wouldn't be taken off.
Right. When you take it off, you're not replacing basically you're just reflashing around it when you put the new unit on it. And if it's a different size, a little more roofing maybe.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, just curious on the capital item list. There's 2 items for the town hall. One's for the town hall roof, which is, I'm assuming, is the original structure there. And the other, the electrical panels. Is that double counted in their budget as well, or does that just appear here?
Let me take a look.
I mean, obviously, it's very easily pulled out of their budget, or their proposed budget.
Town hall roof for $150,000 in fiscal year 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then town hall electrical panels upgrade that's also fiscal 25 for 50,000. Those have been on the capital list since I've, for a decade, and they keep getting, pushed as the discussion of town hall continues.
Okay.
So
that's potential depending on just the status of that project.
Right. I mean, at some point it's.
I've been in the basement. You need to say no more.
Yeah. So I mean, at some point, it's go or get off the pot, right? So the roof needs to get fixed, and the electrical would need to get fixed before the place burns down.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything further on this slide? Is there anything else, Brian? I think you indicated this was toward the end.
I think that's.
Thank you for
it.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time, and any questions, feel free to email. And I have some notes here. I'll follow up with. I'll send them to Robert or Mary.
Yeah, that'd be. So if you send it to both of us.
Okay, great.
Mary will get to it before I do, but it's just the nature of things. But I think we'll have a further discussion about the DPW budget. Like I said, let people think about it a little bit. If we have further inquiries, we'll get back to you. If we have suggestions, we're an advisory committee, so if we have advice, we'll give feedback to Don and Chris and you. I thought I saw Fran. Did you raise a hand there?
Yeah, just one quick question back on that 10-wheel truck issue. I'd like to know what the cost difference is between a heavy-duty 6-wheel truck with a dump body versus a 10-wheel truck with a dump body. Yeah,
if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have the conversation with you and maybe Carl and,
sure.
And our highway foreman.
Yep.
As a non-CDL driver, I think they can probably speak a little bit more informed than I can.
Yep. Thank you.
I think that's a good data point. That's what I had in mind. Good. All right. Well, absent any further questions, Brian, thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks for providing us with good materials that were clear and informative and fielding questions. Appreciate it. You too. So that brings us back to the next agenda item. Bear with me.
Hey, Rob, I just have a really quick question for the new
guy.
Go
right ahead.
So the documents that were sent, that Mary sent to us, there was some items, like the 422 was the initial DPU that was $1.6 million, right? And then he mentioned that it's 1.5, or what was it, 1.5 to 2 miles per year and $700,000 per those mileage. It doesn't seem like that's being accounted for in the budget. Am I just missing something?
So that is funded through capital. It's a combination of capital appropriation and Chapter 90 funding. You won't see that in the operation.
Yeah. So we'll get that as part of the capital.
You'll see that in the capital plan. Yep.
Okay. I was so confused. I was like, there's something not adding up.
Sorry, yeah, I just came in. So yeah, this is what we're talking about tonight is just operating budget, but goals of next year include, projects that are capital projects like Border Street Bridge and all of our paving. That's all capital and Chapter 90 funding. It's not within any of the dollars of our operating budget.
Gotcha.
So I don't know whether that's a recent change or not, but since I've been on this committee, I remember John Chapman was a big proponent of treating roads as just another capital asset. I don't know that that's clearly where they live now, which is good. Anything else about the DPW and facilities budget? Other questions? Seeing none. Brian, thanks for joining us. You can ring off. The next, like I said, is everybody generally comfortable with the idea of, I know it might have been last year, might have been the year before, but we would have a presentation from a department and then take some sort of a vote. It seems to me that it might make more sense on our next agenda to put like a recap, maybe discuss any specific questions anybody wants to put back to a department who's been in front of us, and then we'll eventually vote the entire budget because that's the only vote that counts. That's my thinking. Does anybody have any, does anybody violently dispute that as an approach to it? Seeing no hands, we'll go that way. And if anybody has a different thought, just shoot me an email or something. So the next agenda item is a preview of expected budget issues and warrant articles. And I really anticipated that being kind of a Chris/Don preview of where we're at in the budget and the warrant right now. So if you want to give us some updates and expectations.
Sure. Do you want to do the warrant first or the budget? So why don't we do the budget so like Don can call it an evening.
I think that's a good idea.
So I'd say we're pretty deep into this now. We obviously are tweaking some individual departments as we go, and we're finalizing some of the other big ticket items. The insurance, we're getting final numbers on insurances, and we have the pension number already, and the governor has announced his budget, and its net impact on Cohasset is negligible. So at this point, so there's been really no big movers here at this point. We did get a slightly better health insurance number than we had originally forecast, but it wasn't astronomically better. And again, we're still waiting to see how some of the other insurances come out, and we have some other prices that we have to, some of these other locked expenses we have to fit in there. So we're still doing that. We're juggling with some retirements and some new ads. So there's some salary changes that are going on, and we're trying to make some adjustments there. I'm going to be making a couple of tweaks in my office, which we'll talk about when we get to my budget in a couple of weeks. And so I think overall, I think we're in pretty good shape. Don can give you an update, and I think you already got the mid-year update, right? Last time we worked together. So, so far this year we're doing okay. The state is doing pretty well. I would love it if they would open up their purse strings a little bit more for operations, but I'm not holding my breath on that. And that said, I think we're okay. We're solid. That said, we haven't seen, the new growth number has lagged a little. And again, we see these projects in town, but we haven't seen all of the, that come in yet. And restaurants are coming back. So we're seeing some positive early signs on meals tax. But again, it's comparative. It's nice to see, but it's still a very small amount of our overall budget. And with excise tax, we've seen a little bit of improvement, but at the same time, even if people want cars, they're hard to get. So while I think the price curve, I think people are less averse to more expensive vehicles in Cohasset than they might be in some other places. If you can't get them, you can't get them. So we haven't seen monstrous increases in that either, but we're solid. Is that fair, Don? Is that a fair synopsis? If he's nodding yes. Okay.
Can I ask Chris, with one departmental budget in, with a 3-something% increase, and leaving the schools to one side, which is like saying, let's leave 60% of the budget over there, but let's do that. What do you anticipate, or do you currently anticipate, you and Don currently anticipate what the overall budget proposal numbers are going to look like, and are they going to fit within our revenue? Well, they have to fit within.
Well, they have to fit, right? So yeah. The amount of revenue, of additional revenue we have is like 3% and a little bit, right? Something like that, Don, like 3.0 something, right?
3.02 is where we're at.
So while there's a possibility of a little more revenue being in there at the end of the day, not a lot. So as you saw, though, if you saw that public works side was up 3.8, but the facility side was only 1.3, right? So there's a balancing, right? So and there's also some things I've already said. You know, the fire contract is not settled, so you know we're not budgeting. I don't know what the increases are going to be, so it would be, and I can't budget for that right now, and I don't know what the impacts of a contract would be. And
now we're gonna have a separate executive session discussion about that, because it is in bargaining.
And please too.
Anything that we'll mark up. I think it's on the schedule, but there'll be an executive session so we can talk about some of the.
So that's it. We've actually seen a little bit of the. We've had a couple of retirements. Now that said, sometimes you can hire lower on the scale, and sometimes you can't. I can't hire a fire chief significantly less, less than Chief Sylvia, but not significantly less. It's not like you start at a junior rank and you get paid $50,000 less, right? It doesn't work like that. Though on the union scale, you can. If someone's at step 10, you usually tend to hire at step 1. Schools go through the same kind of thing. So we are seeing some salary savings, but we're seeing some other people move around. So, I think we're okay. And get to see. We really, we have had the ability to deep dive. So, if the increase in public works is a department that's going to be affected more by inflationary pressures too, asphalt, fuel, all the fertilizers. Those things are all that are quite inflationary affected. And facilities is much more labor and basic supplies, and we haven't seen as much of that yet. Though there may be more. How inflation ripples through daily operating expenses is something I think we're going to have to be paying attention to throughout the next year.
Okay. So those were, does anybody have anything for Chris on budget issues before we get his preview of other warrant articles? Seeing none. Chris, I know you and I had a brief discussion about citizens petitions and the scope of the warrant generally, if you want to fill in the committee.
So I can show you, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you where we are today. So give me just a second. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, can everybody see the draft warrant? Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So this is the draft warrant, and there's 20 articles on it at the moment. There'll be no zoning articles. So as of I'll skip over the table of contents. There it is. The beginning of the warrant is all the usual suspects: the annual town report, reports to committees, the operating budget, unpaid bills. I'm afraid Don's already triggered signaled to me that there are going to be a couple of unpaid bills from prior year. I'm afraid. Some supplemental appropriations and some potential budget modifications, and stabilization updates, capital improvements budget, the capital improvements budget, which we'll be hearing more of, revolving funds annual spending limits, one-time cost. I don't have any of those locked in yet. I'm not sure what we're looking to spend. We don't have a lot of money anyway. A lot of the free cash was used up in the fall. 91 liability, the real estate. So the first dozen, including CPC, these are things we see every single year. The projects are varied within them. So you'll be deep diving, obviously, into capital budget. So here's where the things start to be a little different. So The Cook Estates is going to need to be attached to the sewer system because of the Board of Health directive. Their septic fields are failing. And one way of helping them fund that is through the Old Colony. There's an Old Colony Title V upgrade loan program. It allows people who are upgrading their systems to go to sewer to get low interest loans. The town meeting will have to approve an increase in our borrowing authority. Again, this is fully paid for by the residents who use it, but town meeting controls all borrowing. So that would come in front of town meeting. I don't have all the language in that yet, but that's what that's about. The Town Hall Building Committee is requesting to go to CM at risk. You'll hear more of a presentation on that. That's a different approach to contracting, which while it will require some more upfront expense, the plan is it would save money in the project. It brings the general contractor, or what effectively is a general contractor, on early to manage the project and really tightly hold bids and pricing. So it's something that was historically used only on large projects like $100 million projects, but it's becoming much more common because of where we are in the world. And the town's project manager is recommending this, and the select board gave it a green light. The likely way we'll fund this is to ask for $200,000 of the $750 that was allocated at special for a future use to be pulled to be released to allow this start. So you have to bring the CM on and early, and then they would drive through the bid process. So they're on right from the beginning of the bid process to go all the way through. The building department wants to create a new revolving fund for building inspections after hours outside, with the number of major projects that are looming, the Crescent Marin, Spring Street, and One Pleasant. And there's a low scale commercial park up behind the storage center. It's going to require more of these part-time bodies to be on after hours and off hours for construction management. Again, all paid for by the contractor, but you have to have a way to run the money through. But the Affordable Housing Trust has asked for a possible transfer of up to 2 parcels. The select board hasn't voted these yet, but it's on here as a holder for potential development of affordable housing. The Alternative Energy Committee, we have a grant. This microgrid grant to FEMA has been submitted. The first phase, it's a 2-phase grant. Should it be approved, the first phase would be up to $1 million, which the town would be able to get 3/4 reimbursement under the terms of the grant. So while we'd have to authorize $1 million worth of spending, it's reimbursable. So that'll only be about $250. But again, Tanya Bedell will be much more about that when she's ready to come in front of you. And we've been working with the Classic Conservation Trust about some potential land swap. I don't know if that'll be ready, but it's on here just so I don't lose it. And if we can get it together, you'll see it. But at this point, I'm not sure if that'll come together. There are 2 citizen petitions. So that's the entire warrant at the moment. Actually, there's one other that kind of fell off here. We made, as part of Cohasset the Cook Estates, there'll have to be an extension of the sewer district formally, I believe, and that will also be on the warrant. So that fell off, I think, accidentally. So that they'll be linked, the increase of that special loan fund. There's 2. So one was proposed by the Jenkins. It would basically require any individual project of 1 million or more, or any transfer, by the way, of $1 million or more for a specific item to go to the ballot. Right now, the only thing that goes to the ballot are debt exclusions. So this will require anything, regardless if it's a debt exclusion or not, at $1 million or more for a single transfer to go for a public road. The other citizen petition would allow the remote participation of residents at town meeting. Right now, that is allowed for representative town meetings where there's a fixed number of people who everyone knows in advance. This would seek the approval of the state legislature to do that for open town meetings like ours. So that is a quick look at the warrant.
Well, that'll give us some things to talk about. We do have an evening for citizens petition in the schedule. got some hands there. I saw Mike and then Mary.
Hey, Chris, just for Article 13, is that debt issuance, would that be general obligation or would that be backed by the revenues from sewer collections?
It's actually paid by the residents, so it's tied to their property. It's almost like a betterment, Mike. The old colony is almost like a betterment. Okay. That's the way I understand it works. So it's not the town can always, it's collectible like a betterment, right? So it's backed by the property as opposed to the town's general revenues. Though again, I'd have Paul or someone explain the details of how it works. But that's how I understand it. Okay. So it doesn't go against the general obligation bond. It's like a sewer bond. It's really to help a resident. I think it was used actually for the Little Harbor project a lot. I think people used it. I see Patrick nodding his head. But the town meeting would have to approve the authorization, so it could be used for other residents. And then this is the Cook Estates. I think there's 17 homes in there. I forget the exact number.
Okay, thanks.
So Mary, Fran, and Patrick, Mary.
Just a quick question, Chris. Article 20, all that does is authorize the town to petition the state legislature to request a remote participation in an open meeting.
Correct. So both of those citizen petitions require state legislative action. The town cannot do either one of them on their own. You can't place anything on the ballot by law because you want to. That the state legislature would have to approve that. That $1 million threshold question. Same thing with remote participation. There are several communities. Wayland and Weston are two of them, and our council, Carolyn Murray from KP, has worked with Wayland and Weston on these questions. They're looking at the same thing. And it's highly unlikely the state would approve any one-off pilot program for any community to do that. And there's a lot of logistical questions. That said, it's something that's being talked about for the first time. Again, where it goes, I don't know. That said, it's something that would have to be petitioned to the state legislature.
Thank you.
I'm the same thing with 20. I'm sorry, I've missed what it is exactly that you're trying to accomplish.
20 is so right now, Fran, you have to be physically present at a town meeting. You have to be physically in the room.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's what I heard you said, but I wasn't sure that's what you meant. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm me, the proponent on that. The lead proponent on that is actually Ted. Oh my God, he used to be on advisory.
Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, not Ted. Sorry. Thank you. I'm losing my memory in my old town manager age. So Tom is the lead. He's not actually on the petition. He didn't sign it. He circulated it, but he never signed it. But he's the lead proponent for that. So,
thank you.
Well, they should be a couple of interesting conversations for us to have. So that covers the budget issues and warrant articles, unless there's any. So prior to our next meeting, Chris, if you could provide us with whatever the current state of the warrant is, even if it is, as one of my colleagues used to say, more Swiss than cheese. It'll give us, a layout, and something to kind of wrap our heads around in terms of what we need to do.
You've already jumped in. I mean, the biggest single meaty piece is the budget, which you're already in.
Oh, for sure.
Capital's very deep into the capital plan projects right now, so they're on target for a mid-March completion. CPC, I'm not quite sure. I was on the phone with Russ Benetti a little earlier during your meeting, and I think they have a little more work to do on there. So I'm not sure there's a lot for the CPC this spring that I'm aware of. And the other ones I'll get those filled in fairly fast.
I was just asking for a copy of the draft so we can kind of, all keep track of what we've done and what we need to do. The next item on the agenda, really the next two, have to do with kind of a forecast of school department budget, school facilities, committee presentation, and liaison reports. So to kind of combine them together, we can start with the liaison reports with our school department liaisons, Mary and Jean, just in terms of, I can steal part of your speech. As we're having this meeting, the school department's getting its budget presentation. So where we're going to go from here, I'll leave to them to comment on. So I don't know, Jean or Mary, which one of you wants to go jump in? I saw Jean's hand first, so it's all you.
Well, I'll jump in because of your comment about the meetings running at the same time as ours. So it makes it next to impossible for us to watch any, and we could watch they start at 6 o'clock at night. So the first hour is usually the normal school routine information. The budget is usually later in the meeting. So we've missed them, and in our searches online to watch them after the fact, we've been unsuccessful. So I did contact the superintendent and the chair McClellan, and ask them where we can see those so that we can be informed. And they're working hard to make sure there were no minutes online. So it was just kind of hard to track things. So they've been working on making sure that those things are there so that we have access to the information that we need. And then Mary also followed up with Patrick and Craig about some other information. So I'll let you talk to that, Mary.
So what we do know, they did present their budget on at the same time as our last meeting on January 19th. They are at this point over the recommended budget from Town Hall, partly due to they were able to add some staff with some COVID relief funds that were deemed necessary, and those staff are still there. And also due to some enrollment numbers, especially in second grade next year, looking to add some staff. So right now, I mean, they're still in the workshop phase of all of this. I think where we've come down, because even though their meetings start earlier, we all know how we feel when we're done with the meeting. So they don't really want to jump into another one with us right away. So we will go ahead and convene a subcommittee meeting, and we'll speak to Chris about whether we need to officially set up a subcommittee or whether Jean and I believe, Mike, you've kind of been following the school facilities end of things. So whether the three of us might sit down with Craig and one other member of the school department and just get a better handle on things. So they do know that what we're interested in is obviously staffing numbers, enrollment numbers. They also presented their capital plan at the last meeting, and I would be curious, it would be nice to have a printout next to Brian's capital plan, just for facilities for those items. But in any event, it's a work in process, and then we'll need to decide. I don't know if anyone is available next week, or we'll be looking to the first week of March to have a subcommittee meeting, and then we'll report back, because our next meeting is not until March 9. If I'm not March 8 and 9, I believe.
March 2nd, I have on the list.
I don't have two, but
public safety and executive session.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the 8th and the 9th.
So perhaps, you know, I don't know what the Robert's rules are on this one, since it would just be three of us, which is not a quorum, whether we need to be a subcommittee or can just meet for an informational session if there's just two of them, which is not a quorum.
Well, if they're two people, though, are a subcommittee, then it does need to be posted as a school committee of the whole, or however they post those things now.
Yeah, I was going to put that question to Chris. It's some variant of the open meeting law. This committee has never had a subcommittee in my time, but there's a lot of efficiencies, I think, to having a smaller group meet with a smaller group in the school committee rather than putting all those people in the room, at least for a preliminary conversation. So should we vote to create a school facing subcommittee, or can we just post it if we feel we need to post it, or post it as a meeting of the whole? Well, then you wouldn't have a as a committee, we have a quorum of 5. But, and the last consideration is that subcommittee would not be deliberating or voting on anything. Thoughts?
Well, if you're asking me for my thoughts, I'm not playing, I don't want to play town council. At the same time, I don't think liaisons trigger any kind of open meetings law issues. And I think keeping it more informal would be easier, at least on your folks' side. And you can have 3 of you, because that's still not because you're not voting on anything, right? You're literally fact finding, right? You're not.
Yeah, that's what I think, because I think we're outside of an O&O problem. So go ahead and schedule the meeting, and I'll one of the people I'm not going to start being town council, but I do have a colleague who's deep in the dark arts of the open meeting law. So I'll ask her for an informal. Yeah, let me say, I'm going to talk to a person, and if that conversation leads me to believe we require further study, I'll make it formal. But I'm not rendering legal advice of any kind or nature, as Patrick is recognizing. But yeah, so why don't you guys go ahead and schedule that meeting, and then we'll kind of back into making sure that it squares the O&O. Yeah, Jean.
We're looking forward to scheduling something well ahead of what the original proposed date was, because we don't want to get to the same spot we were last year, where we were so last minute at the party that we couldn't make any informed decisions one way or the other. So we didn't take any action on anything that they proposed, because we literally got information a half an hour before our meeting.
And the meeting was 3 days before the warrant went to print. So yeah, that's why, I mean, since the beginning of this process, we've been talking about moving it up, and I really appreciate Mary and your approach, and the idea of a subcommittee getting ahead of it is great. And if they're just doing if our school committee is doing the budget presentation this evening, and we're talking about meeting with them now, then we're as on top of it as we can be.
Right.
I would suggest, if anyone's sort of interested in some of the issues, the school committee's meetings are up online. I forget the website exactly, but you can kind of Google your way to it. Their January 19th meeting at the 3 hour and 3 minute mark, there's about a 20-minute conversation that you can get some insight into.
It was informative, let's just say.
Yeah. So but that's why I think having a subcommittee, talk to a subcommittee, and getting a kind of direct dialogue going, so we can do what we do, so we can advise and help bring this budget, to town meeting in a worldly way.
Oh, well,
that's my goal, anyhow. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Somebody was talking. I saw Fran's hand. So Jane, was that you?
It was Mary.
Okay, Mary, then Fran.
So I will, the business manager, Susan Owen, will be sending me the budget that they reviewed this evening, tomorrow or later on tonight. So I'll forward that to the committee so everybody knows. And Mike and Jean will just take it offline and try to figure out what's best for the 3 of us. And then we can see what works for Craig and whomever else is on that committee.
Great.
Okay. So if there's anything we need to do as a committee, let me know and we'll do it. Fran, I'm sorry.
A quick question for you folks that are going to meet with them. I was hoping we'd be talking to somebody tonight. A question was put to me by another citizen about the parking of the school buses at Don Stasko's yard across the street from the, next to Aubuchon's Hardware. And I'm told we're paying around $40,000 a year to park the buses in his yard. And I'm wondering why we can't find space in some of the schoolyards to park our school buses. That seems to me a kind of a gross waste of money where we seem to have plenty of square footage.
That's a good question, because they were down at the DPW.
Yeah, well, I've already been over that with Brian. They've got too much stuff in the DPW to put the buses there anymore, and that was only going to be a temporary thing anyway. Seems to me that's where they belong, but anyway.
Then they were at Barnes. They were at Barnes Field next.
That's right.
Yeah, they were there for a while at the Little League. Yep. So why we're paying $40,000 a year to park buses doesn't make sense to me at all. That seems like a very a gross waste of money. So anyway,
is that a school? Is that a? Can I ask Chris? Is that a school committee question or is that a town question?
Is it the school committee or the school department has leased that space, not the town? That said, we have been talking. We've been trying to find a site to have kind of a bus storage facilities location somewhere in town. And we did identify a piece of land owned by the state that was talked about a while ago, but we haven't been able to make any progress on it. There isn't a lot of, unfortunately, as much of land as there is in Cohasset, there isn't a lot of paved surface to store buses on. We've even talked with the Music Circus about using their space off season. And that.
How about the parking lot at the senior center?
We don't own that. That's the swim center.
We're good to go. Gene, go ahead.
How about the RTF? I mean, the buses are gone before they open, and they're there probably after they close.
They have too much stuff. They have too much stuff there right now. I just said to Brian, I talked to him recently about it, and I said, you got a bunch of old snowplows and all kinds of other stuff scattered out. Can you consolidate some of that stuff? And he said they've looked at it, talked about it, and they don't think they can. I don't know.
At the RTF or at the DPW, friend?
Oh, the DPW.
I'm talking about the RTF because it seems to me that the buses are only there at night. And then
after, even there in the middle of the day.
After hours, although not
also,
on the weekends.
They're also there all weekend. So
yeah, not on the weekends.
Yeah, they're all weekend. And they're there during the middle of the day. They're there as well. So that wouldn't work for your RTF, no. And the new salt shed's going to be bigger than the old one. So in other words, there were a lot of issues there. I don't know whose back is being scratched. You know, I think there is a solution. I think there could be some solutions up to the DL school or the Osgood school, and there's a lot of land up there we could, you know, just to stick in 8 or 9 buses. Anyway, I just think we're spending an awful lot of money for that we shouldn't have to.
Fair point. Okay. Any other liaison reports? Let's see, Mike's hand.
Just quickly on capital, the last number I heard, there's about a $1.4 million shortfall in terms of what they have available to spend, and the requests that have come in, and that includes actually there was a pricey item, I guess, that was withdrawn by the harbor master. So stay tuned on capital. The schools, I think, if my memory correct, it serves me correct, were $4 million by themselves. So the capital committee is looking at $1.9 million to spend after debt service. And yeah, so it seems like, I know that's how it usually works, is there's always more requests than what's available, but it seems a little acute in this instance. And I guess the $2 million allocation that goes to capital every year has been flat for 10 years. And, you know, things go up in price. So, you know, keeping something steady for 10 years usually isn't going to get you the same purchasing power. And I do know in other towns, a lot of time the capital budget is set as a percentage of the operating budget. So as the operating budget grows, the capital budget can grow as well. But just that was something that was thrown around at the, what date was that? The February 10th capital meeting.
Let's see, anybody else? Okay, so the upcoming meeting, the next meeting is on a list I have here. Right, it's on the 2nd, it's public safety and executive session. The executive session will address collective bargaining issues. So that's you have to go into executive session on under very specific purposes, and we'll have the appropriate purpose ready to read into the record. I have on my desktop someplace the advisory committee liaison assignments. Public safety is Mike.
Yeah, both the chiefs are teed up for the March 2nd meeting, so they're aware of it. Do we want to hear capital? I'm assuming we want to hear capital as well as operating from them.
They generally do come in with now.
I just want to provide a little more clarity on the recharter numbers that we provided in the packet. So we said that recharter is running ahead.
The DPW came in with that summary sheet. If the chiefs could give us those too, it would be helpful. It's kind of a one, budget request at a glance with both the capital and the operating and the percentage moves and major issues. That was I think that was a Tom Baker improvement, and it's very useful. So who provided that to DPW? Was that Don?
Don sends that out. So I believe he's probably already done that to all the departments.
Okay. Yeah. So if they have materials that they can send, we will do something to make sure that those materials get into people's hands on time, well prior to the meeting, as well as the meeting notices and links and everything else between Mary and I and the office will fix that, because and I know that a couple of you have both your Cohasset MA email addresses plus a private email, and we have compiled a master list of those that I'll provide again to Town Hall, and we'll make sure everybody gets everything. I apologize to those of you who didn't get stuff as early as you should have for this meeting. So the following week is a joint meeting with Water and Sewer and the Select Board, I assume. And then on the 9th, that's the 8th. That's a Tuesday, I think. And then the 9th is IT and general town budget. And then the 15th is the citizens petitions meeting. And we also may be able to put other things in there if we need to. So when I do the agenda for the meeting, the public safety meeting, I'll put in a placeholder for any further discussion or questions for DPW. And then for the IT general town budget meeting, any additional questions or considerations for public safety, et cetera. So we can just get a last touch on each one of those. So when we do vote the whole budget, we'll have gotten any additional follow-up questions or information. Also, I should say, if anybody has an item they'd like to see on an agenda for a discussion point, just shoot me an email, and me and Mary, and we'll make sure it gets on. I don't think that's been a problem, but I just wanted to make sure we said it. So, and also at the meeting on the 2nd, since we're having executive session, we have some executive session minutes. We'll do minutes both open and executive, and get caught up to wherever we happen to be at. So that's where we're at, unless there's anything else on liaison reports. We don't have any minutes. Chris, I see your hand.
If you just want to just let me know when you want to plug in some of these warrant articles to these meetings as well. I'm talking about the more routine ones.
Yeah. Can you send me the document that you put up tonight, not now or tomorrow or something, and I'll do exactly that. We'll plug in where we think they'll go, and we'll put that, we'll revise the schedule to make sure it reflects all those. That's really why I like having the draft, even when it's just an outline, because then you can fill things in from there. So unless there's anything else, we have no minutes to approve tonight. We'll do that next time. I did not perceive any topics in the last 48 hours that are too hot to handle. So I guess that leaves us with adjournment. unless anybody has anything else that's consistent with the open meeting law. Patrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I am now getting the town emails. That's all straightened out and fixed. So thanks to Diane, as she points out. So
well, everything
you can take my Gmail account off the circulation list. I'm getting all the town emails.
Got it. So with the exception of Jean, I think everybody is okay with their Cohasset MA. One is reliable. Jean, we'll just make sure we send it to both. So
that'd be great. It's easier for me to access that during the day. So if something came up in a hurry, you know, I can see it.
All right.
And if I respond from that email, I copy my town email so that I'm covered for the open meeting law.
There's I'm the farthest thing from a tech maven, but there is a function that you can put on, any of us can put on their town email address to forward it to another email address. And I do that so that it pops up in my private account, my personal account, my non-work account. So I don't have to actually go to Outlook, change the account under which I sign in and look for it. So that's a neat little trick. It's right in the options that you can forward that email to any other account.
It's on the town website on how to do that? Or
if you're in Outlook, in your town account, you go into the email and drop down one of the menus. Will give you
okay.
An
I'll look for it.
Yeah, it's not. If I can do it, my dog could do it, and if so that's that I think brings us to a motion to adjourn. Anybody?
I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:42, and you're only 5 minutes beyond your time. Good job.
That's what you hired me for, is meetings that run on time. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mike. Okay. Then all in favor, Gina Stino.
Aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Patrick Kennedy.
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Meg Wheeler.
Aye.
Mike Barclay.
Aye.
Adam Amon.
Aye.
And Mark Maggi.
Aye.
Who's exceptionally well-behaved children.
An 8-year-old who can read read stories to the 5-year-old who can't, so that helps.
Oh, that's the best. All right. Well, it's good to see you all. I think we'll hopefully be able to move these meetings at a clip without sacrificing what we all feel like we need to know in order to make ask intelligent questions. And I think the idea of looping back to things gives us we don't have to something comes up a week or so later, there's no reason that should be filed away and can't be revisited. So all right, we're done. We should stop the recording. We should not violate the open meeting law and deliberate on anything.